Let me tell you something that most women never hear enough. Love should never cost you your self-respect. Too many women lose themselves trying to prove they're good enough for a man who hasn't even earned that version of them yet. You cook, you care, you chase, you fix, and somewhere along the way you forget you were the prize all along. So today we're uncovering the 4 secret things you should never do for a man, not because you don't love him, but because you love yourself enough to stop overgiving. You know what's wild? So many people think love is about compromise, but somewhere along the line that word got twisted. Compromise does not mean lowering who you are. It doesn't mean watering yourself down so someone else can find you easier to swallow. There's a difference between meeting someone halfway and walking yourself backward just to make them comfortable. And that's where too many people lose themselves, in the slow, quiet lowering of their own standards just to keep someone around. Because it never starts big, right? It starts small. Maybe you let one comment slide that made you feel small. Maybe you stopped talking about something you love because they rolled their eyes. Maybe you started saying, "It's fine," when it wasn't. That's how it happens, piece by piece, little by little, until you look up one day and realize you're living in a version of yourself you barely recognize. And here's the truth. When you start lowering your standards, you're teaching that person how little they need to give. You're telling them, "I'll do more, just don't leave." But love built on fear of losing someone isn't love. It's control. The moment you start playing small so they can feel big, you've already traded your power for permission. I've seen so many strong, confident women lose their shine trying to keep a man who's not even doing half the work. They call it loyalty, but it's really fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear that maybe they won't find someone who will love them better. But let me tell you something. Being alone is never the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is waking up every day beside someone who slowly convinces you that you're too much when you've just been giving too much. You don't need to beg someone to treat you right. You don't need to convince someone that you're worthy. You don't have to earn love. That's already supposed to be freely given. When someone genuinely cares, they don't make you question if you're asking for too much. They make you wonder why you ever settled for less. When you hold your standards high, the wrong people will leave. And that's the point. You're not meant to keep everyone. You're meant to keep peace. And peace doesn't live where you're constantly proving your worth. So when someone calls you hard to love or too picky, that's usually someone who wanted the benefits of you without the responsibility of meeting your standard. Let them go. Because the right one will never ask you to lower the bar. They'll grab a ladder and rise to meet it. Your standards are not a test for others. They are protection for your heart. They are a reflection of what you've learned, what you've healed from, and what you now refuse to tolerate. When you honor your boundaries, you honor the journey it took to build them. You owe it to yourself to stop letting people rent space in your life who can't afford your value. And if you ever find yourself asking, "Maybe I'm expecting too much," pause. Ask instead, "Why am I asking for so little?" Because the moment you start questioning your worth to keep someone comfortable, you've already given away the power that made you magnetic in the first place. You don't keep a relationship by lowering your standards. You keep it by being so clear about your worth that only someone serious will step up to meet it. Because the right man doesn't want a smaller version of you. He wants the woman who knows exactly who she is, exactly what she brings, and exactly what she deserves. So never lower your standards just to keep him. Because if you have to lose yourself to make someone stay, you've already lost the only person who mattered. You. Let's be real for a second. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships, especially early on, is giving someone everything before they've earned anything. You start showing up like a wife when you're barely even being treated like a priority. You cook, you clean, you check in, You support his dreams, you become his peace. And in the process, you forget that peace isn't something you give to someone who hasn't even proven he can protect yours. See, love is about giving, yes. But it's also about timing. Giving too much too soon doesn't make you loving, it makes you unbalanced. You're giving relationship energy to a situation that hasn't even earned clarity. That's like investing all your money in a company that hasn't shown you a plan. You end up broke, confused, and wondering where it all went. And I know what some of you are thinking, but that's just who I am. I'm a giver. Yeah, but even givers need wisdom. Because when you give out of habit instead of discernment, you're not being kind, you're being careless with your energy. You can't build connection by carrying the whole relationship on your back. That's not love, that's exhaustion dressed as loyalty. When a man hasn't committed, you have to stop acting like he has. Stop doing the things a committed partner does while you're still waiting on a title, a plan, or even consistency. If you hand out the reward before he's passed the test, what's his motivation to step up? You can't convince someone to value you by making their life easier. People don't appreciate what they didn't have to earn. And I get it, it feels natural to care. You want to show what kind of woman you are, what kind of love you bring to the table. But the right person will see that without you having to overextend to prove it. Because when you give too soon, you teach him that he can enjoy the benefits of you without the responsibility of commitment. And that's not partnership, that's comfort. Love isn't about performing. It's not about proving that you're the one. It's about alignment. It's two people meeting each other where they are and growing together at the same pace. If one person is running ahead, giving everything, while the other one's strolling, taking their time, it's not a relationship, it's a chase. And the more you chase, the more they learn they don't have to move. You deserve reciprocity. That means your energy should come back to you in some form, not always perfectly, but consistently. If you're the only one showing up, calling, planning, worrying, and nurturing, you're not in love, you're in labor. And love isn't supposed to feel like a full-time job you're not getting paid for. Don't confuse patience with overinvestment. It's okay to be patient while someone grows, but it's not okay to build a home on a foundation that's still being poured. Stop offering commitment to someone who's still offering confusion. Stop calling someone yours when they haven't even called you ours. Because when you act like a wife without the title, you're handing over all the benefits of you, loyalty, nurturing, effort, without any security in return. And listen, this isn't about playing games. It's about balance. It's about letting a man meet you where you are, not rewarding him for showing potential. Potential is nice, but consistency is what builds trust. You deserve to know if someone's intentions are real, not just comfortable. So hold back a little, not because you're withholding love, but because you're protecting it. Let him show you that he's serious. Let his actions prove he's ready for the kind of love you bring. Because when a man truly values you, he won't need to be convinced to commit. He'll be grateful you didn't give everything away before he had the chance to earn it. So never give him wife privileges when you're not his wife. Because the love that's real won't need you to prove it. It will rise to meet your worth all on its own. You ever notice how the more you chase someone's attention, the less they seem to value it? It's like the harder you try to be seen, the easier it becomes for them to look away. Because attention that has to be begged for will never feel the same as attention that's freely given. When you start chasing someone's focus, you're not just running after them, you're running away from yourself. You're stepping out of your peace, your power, and your confidence, and into a place where their validation becomes your oxygen. And that's not love. That's dependency dressed up as devotion. See, a healthy relationship doesn't need you to chase. It needs you to inspire effort. There's a huge difference. When you chase, you're telling them, I'll prove my worth if you just look my way. When you inspire effort, you're saying, I already know my worth, and you'll either rise to meet it or you'll fall away. One comes from fear, the other from self-respect. The truth is, chasing might get you short-term attention, but it will never get you long-term commitment. Because what starts in pursuit usually stays in pursuit. You'll always be the one calling, checking in, worrying, planning, apologizing. And before you know it, you're exhausted, waiting for someone to notice the effort they stopped appreciating a long time ago. But when you stop chasing, something powerful happens. You create space. Space for clarity, space for truth, space for that person to actually decide, do they value you enough to come forward, or were they only there because you were making it easy? And listen, pulling back isn't about playing games. It's about protecting your energy. You can't force someone to love you the way you deserve. You can't convince someone to care if they don't want to. What you can do is stop over-delivering on what they undervalue. When someone's meant for you, you won't have to keep reminding them of your presence. They'll feel your absence. You see, attention should never be earned through pressure. It should be given through connection. When you're constantly chasing, you create a dynamic where you're the pursuer and they're the prize. But in a healthy relationship, both people should be the prize. Both should show up. Both should reach across the table. If you're the only one doing the reaching, that's not romance. That's imbalance. The reason so many people end up chasing is because they mistake silence for rejection. Sometimes when a person pulls back, you panic. You think, if I don't do something, I'll lose them. But sometimes silence isn't rejection. It's revelation. It's revealing who was really invested and who was just entertained. When you stop chasing, the truth gets loud. If they care, they'll come closer. If they don't, they'll fade. And that's your answer. You can't inspire effort in someone who's comfortable watching you do all the work. The only way to find out who's willing to meet you is to stop meeting them more than halfway. You have to let them feel the weight of your absence. You have to let them miss what you brought to the table. Because sometimes the only way people realize your value is when they can no longer access it on demand. You deserve a love that's mutual, effort that meets effort, energy that matches energy. A relationship where both people are intentional, not one person doing double time trying to keep things alive. The right one won't make you chase. They'll make you feel chosen. They'll move toward you with consistency, not convenience. So stop chasing attention and start inspiring effort, because the person who truly wants you will never need to be reminded of your worth. They'll feel it every time they realize how rare it is to find someone who knows exactly who they are and refuses to run after anyone who doesn't see it. One of the hardest lessons to learn in love is that it's okay to say no. Somewhere along the way, a lot of people started believing that setting boundaries means you're being difficult, or that standing up for yourself means you're cold or unloving. But let me tell you, boundaries aren't walls that push people away. They're doors that only open for those who know how to treat you right. They don't keep love out, they keep chaos out, and there's a difference. When you don't have boundaries, you start living on emotional autopilot. You say yes when you're tired, you agree when you're uncomfortable, and you stay quiet when something inside you is screaming. You do it because you want to keep the peace. But what you don't realize is that every time you silence yourself, you're breaking your own heart in small, quiet ways. The peace you're protecting on the outside is the same peace you're destroying on the inside. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are protection. They protect your time, your energy, your emotional well-being. You shouldn't feel guilty for needing that. The people who truly care about you won't be offended by your limits. They'll respect them. Because the ones who love you for real want your peace, not your people-pleasing. They want your honesty, not your exhaustion. So when someone crosses your line and you speak up, that's not drama. That's self-respect. You're allowed to say, that doesn't work for me. You're allowed to say, I need space. You're allowed to say, I'm not okay with that. You don't owe anyone endless access to you just because they want it. The right people won't see your boundaries as rejection. They'll see them as clarity, because you can't build a healthy relationship on confusion. You build it on communication, and communication starts with being clear about what you will and won't accept. The truth is, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call you selfish the moment you start having some. They'll tell you that you've changed, that you're distant, that you're not the same person anymore. But you haven't changed. You've just stopped carrying relationships that were built on your silence. You've stopped giving unlimited access to people who never earned the privilege of it. And sometimes the first person you have to set boundaries with is yourself. You have to stop overthinking what others will say. You have to stop feeling responsible for their feelings when you're simply protecting your own. You have to stop explaining why your peace matters, because it just does. The moment you start apologizing for having standards, you invite people to question them. And when people start questioning your boundaries, they're really questioning your right to self-respect. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, but they also teach you something about yourself. That you are worthy of being respected, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You don't need to be understood to be valid. Not everyone will get it, and that's okay. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to honor yourself enough to hold the line. There's strength in silence, but there's power in no. And when you start saying no to what drains you, you make room for what fulfills you. You'll start to notice how much lighter you feel, how much clearer your relationships become, and how the wrong ones slowly fall away. Because boundaries don't chase anyone off. They reveal who was never planning to stay. So never apologize for having boundaries. Because the moment you do, you start trading yourself, respect for someone else's comfort. And that's a trade that love should never require. There's something deeply painful about loving someone who's broken and thinking your love can fix them. It comes from a good place, from your empathy, your heart, your desire to see them happy again. You see their pain, and you think, if I love them hard enough, they'll heal. But what usually happens is you end up carrying their pain and calling it love. You become the emotional bandage for someone who keeps reopening the same wounds and handing them back to you. And eventually, you stop realizing how much of yourself you've given away just trying to save them. You can't heal someone who isn't ready to heal themselves. You can't fix what someone is still pretending isn't broken. And you can't rescue a person who has grown comfortable living in their chaos. When you try, you don't just lose energy. You lose perspective. You start mistaking their progress for your purpose. You tell yourself, if I just hold on a little longer, they'll change. But love doesn't work like that. You can support someone who's trying, but you can't carry someone who's not moving. There's a difference between helping and saving. Helping is standing beside someone who's taking responsibility for their own healing. Saving is dragging someone who keeps pulling you down with them. One builds connection, the other builds resentment. You start resenting them for not trying harder, and you start resenting yourself for not being able to fix it. You lose the balance between loving someone and losing yourself. And maybe that's what hurts the most, watching someone you love stay stuck when you can clearly see the way out. But sometimes love means stepping back, not stepping in. Sometimes it means saying, I believe in your ability to grow, but I can't do the growing for you. Because when you keep fixing, you take away their opportunity to learn. You rob them of the accountability that comes with facing their own pain. And no matter how much you want to, you can't rewrite someone's story while they're still choosing the same chapter. When you love someone who's hurting, your heart tells you to pour more. But healing doesn't come from someone else's effort. It comes from personal choice. You can love them deeply and still decide that it's not your job to be their emotional rehab. That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you wise. Because real love doesn't say, I'll fix you. It says, I'll walk with you while you fix yourself. And let's be honest, there's also a part of you that hides behind fixing others because it keeps you from facing your own healing. It feels easier to pour into someone else's pain than to sit alone with your own. But you can't keep using someone's brokenness as a distraction from your own growth. You can't be so busy healing them that you forget to check your own scars. It's not selfish to step away from someone who refuses to change. It's not cruel to stop trying when all your effort has turned into enabling, because love without accountability turns into a cycle. The same fights, the same apologies, the same promises that never stick. You deserve more than being someone's emotional safety net. You deserve a love that's mutual, where healing happens together, not at your expense. You can be a light in someone's darkness, but you can't live there with them. You can guide, support, and care. But at some point, they have to choose to walk toward the light themselves. Because the truth is, no amount of love can fix someone who's still handing you their broken pieces and refusing to hold any of them. So never try to fix what he's not trying to heal, because the moment you stop rescuing others and start protecting your peace, you'll realize that love was never about saving someone else. It was about saving yourself. Every relationship you've ever had, whether it lasted or not, taught the people in it how to treat you. That's the part most people overlook. You're always teaching people, not with words, but with what you allow, what you overlook, and what you keep forgiving. You can't control how someone feels about you, but you absolutely control what behavior you accept from them. And that's where most of the power in love really lies. Not in what you say, but in what you tolerate. When you ignore the things that hurt you just to keep the peace, you send a quiet message that your comfort doesn't matter. When you let disrespect slide because you don't want to start a fight, you teach them that your silence is cheaper than their effort. When you stay after being mistreated, you teach them that you'll endure what they give because you're too afraid to walk away. Every single moment you let something slide that shouldn't, you're training them for the next time. And trust me, there will always be a next time. It doesn't happen all at once. It's small, a sarcastic comment here, a dismissive tone there. You think it's not that big of a deal, but what you call small, they call permission. And over time, that permission turns into patterns. Patterns of neglect, of taking you for granted, of crossing lines without consequence. And suddenly you're in a relationship that doesn't look like love anymore. It looks like survival. You're walking on eggshells, trying to keep someone happy who stopped trying to keep you respected. Here's the truth: people will rise or fall to the level of your boundaries. If your standards are low, they'll get comfortable there. But when you start setting them higher, when you start saying, "That's not okay with me," or "I deserve more than this," that's when you separate who's genuinely there to love you from who was just there for convenience. Because the right person won't flinch at your standards. They'll be thankful for them. Your clarity helps them love you better. Teaching people how to treat you isn't about confrontation. It's about consistency. You don't have to yell to be heard. You just have to mean what you say and act on what you mean. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, but you stay every time it happens, your words lose their weight. If you say you need honesty, but reward lies with forgiveness instead of consequences, you're teaching them that deceit works. Respect doesn't grow in confusion. It grows in clarity. And it's not just about others. You also teach yourself how to be treated. Every time you accept less than you deserve, your self-worth takes a step backward. Every time you stay quiet to keep someone else comfortable, you tell yourself your feelings are too much. But you're not too much. You've just been around people who gave too little. The love that's meant for you will never make you question your worth. It will make you feel seen without having to prove your value. So when someone disrespects you, don't explain your boundary 10 times. Enforce it once. When someone plays games, don't match their energy. remove yourself from the table. You don't have to beg anyone to treat you right. You just have to stop giving them chances to treat you wrong. The more you honor your boundaries, the more your energy will shift. You'll stop attracting people who need fixing and start attracting people who bring peace. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself, with dignity, with patience, and with unwavering self-respect. So if you want love that's steady and real, start by standing firm in what you know you deserve. Because once you do, the wrong ones will leave on their own, and the right one will never need to be taught twice how to love you right.